Hi, my beautiful family. Welcome back to Life-Changing True Stories. Today, I bring you a powerful and deeply loving story. The grand ballroom of the Meridian Hotel sparkled like a constellation brought down to earth. Crystal chandeliers cast dancing shadows across marble floors while the elite of the business world mingled beneath their glittering light. Sofia Ramirez adjusted the deep emerald silk of her dress and tried not to feel out of place among the billionaires and corporate titans surrounding her. She had not wanted to come tonight. Charity galas filled with wealthy people showing off their donations had never been her scene. But Diego Morales, her colleague from the art gallery, had insisted. He needed a date for this particular event, and somehow his enthusiasm had worn down her resistance. Now, standing in this sea of designer gowns and tailored suits, she wondered if she had made a mistake. Diego appeared at her elbow with 2 glasses of champagne, his easy smile lighting up his handsome face. His dark hair was perfectly styled, and his tuxedo fit him like it had been painted on. He handed her a glass and clinked his against hers. "Stop looking so nervous," he said with a laugh. "You belong here as much as anyone else." Sofia took a sip of the expensive champagne and raised an eyebrow. "Diego, I curate art for small galleries. These people buy entire museums before breakfast. And they have terrible taste most of the time," Diego replied, winking at her. "Trust me, you are far more interesting than half the people in this room." Across the ballroom, Julian Blackwood stood in a circle of executives discussing the latest market trends. He nodded at appropriate moments and made the expected comments, but his attention had been captured by something else entirely. Someone else entirely. The woman in the emerald dress had walked in 15 minutes ago, and Julian had not been able to look away since. There was something about the way she moved, the way she held herself. She did not glide through the room like she owned it the way most people here did. Instead, she seemed to observe everything with curious, intelligent eyes. She looked real in a room full of carefully constructed facades. Catherine Winters, his business associate, noticed his distraction and followed his gaze. "Julian, are you even listening to Robert's proposal?" Julian blinked and turned his attention back to the conversation, but his mind kept drifting. Who was she? And why did she seem so comfortable with that man who kept touching her arm and making her laugh? "Excuse me?" Julian said abruptly, cutting off someone mid-sentence. "I need to make a call."
Ow.
He did not need to make a call. What he needed was to get closer to the woman in emerald before this irrational feeling consuming him drove him completely mad. Julian Blackwood did not do irrational. He built billion-dollar companies through logic and strategy. He never let emotions cloud his judgment. Yet here he was, crossing the ballroom like a man possessed, drawn to a stranger. Sofia was listening to Diego tell an animated story about a disastrous exhibition opening when she felt it. That peculiar sensation of being watched. She glanced up, and her breath caught in her throat. A man was looking directly at her from across the room, and the intensity in his gaze made her skin tingle. He was tall, perhaps 6 feet, with dark hair that was slightly too long for the corporate world he clearly inhabited. His jaw was strong, his features sharp and aristocratic, but it was his eyes that held her captive. They were a striking gray like storm clouds, and they were fixed on her with an expression she could not quite read. "Who is that?" Sofia asked Diego quietly, nodding slightly in the man's direction. Diego followed her gaze, and his eyebrows shot up. "That is Julian Blackwood." The Julian Blackwood. He owns Blackwood Technologies. The man is worth about $20 billion, give or take a few $100 million. Sofia felt her stomach flip. Of course he was a billionaire. And of course, he was looking at her like that. Rich men always thought they could have whatever they wanted. "He looks angry," Sofia observed, watching as Julian began walking toward them with purposeful strides. "He looks intense," Diego corrected. "That is just his face. I have seen him in interviews." The man does not know how to smile. But Diego is wrong. Julian was angry, though he could not quite explain why. The sight of this unknown woman laughing at another man's jokes, letting him stand so close, touching her arm so familiarly, it made something dark and possessive rise up in Julian's chest. It made no sense. He did not know her. He had no claim on her. Yet the jealousy burning through him was undeniable. Julian reached them just as Diego was launching into another story. Up close, the woman was even more beautiful than he had realized. Her skin was golden and smooth, her dark hair falling in soft waves past her shoulders. Her eyes were the color of warm honey, intelligent and alert. She looked up at him with a mixture of curiosity and wariness. "Good evening," Julian said, his voice coming out rougher than he intended. "I am Julian Blackwood." Diego's eyes widened slightly, but he recovered quickly, extending his hand. "Diego Morales. This is my colleague, Sofia Ramirez. We work together at the Castellano Gallery." Sofia shook Julian's offered hand, and the touch sent electricity racing up her arm. She pulled away quickly, unsettled by her reaction. "Nice to meet you, Mr. Blackwood." "Julian, please," he said, his eyes never leaving her face. "Are you enjoying the gala?" "It is lovely," Sofia replied carefully. "The venue is beautiful." An awkward silence fell. Diego, sensing the strange tension, excused himself to get more drinks. Leaving Sofia alone with the intense billionaire who was still looking at her like she was a puzzle he needed to solve. "You do not seem comfortable here," Julian observed, moving slightly closer. Sofia bristled at his presumptuousness. "And you can tell that how exactly?" "By watching me from across the room." A flicker of surprise crossed Julian's face, followed by something that might have been amusement. "So you noticed? It's kind of hard not to notice when someone stares at you like they are trying to memorize your face." Sofia replied, crossing her arms. "Is there something you wanted, Mr. Blackwood?" Julian realized he was handling this terribly. He was used to boardroom negotiations, not trying to talk to a beautiful woman who clearly was not impressed by his wealth or status. "I wanted to know who you were," he admitted. "And now I am wondering why you came here with him." Sofia's eyes flashed. "Excuse me? That is absolutely none of your business. Are you together?" Julian pressed, unable to stop himself, even though he knew he was being inappropriate. "Again, none of your business," Sofia said coldly. "What gives you the right to ask me that?" Julian stepped closer, and Sofia could smell his cologne, something expensive and masculine that made her head spin. "Tell me you do not feel this," he said quietly, his voice dropping to an intimate tone. "This connection between us. Tell me I am imagining it." Sofia's heart was pounding, but she refused to let him see how much he was affecting her. "You are imagining it. I do not even know you." "Then let me change that," Julian said. "Have dinner with me." "Tomorrow night?" "I am here with Diego," Sofia pointed out, though her resolve was weakening under the intensity of Julian's gaze. "He is your colleague, not your boyfriend," Julian stated with certainty. "Otherwise you would have said so." Before Sofia could respond, Diego returned with drinks, and the moment shattered. Julian accepted a glass with stiff politeness, but his eyes never left Sofia's face. The three of them made awkward small talk for several minutes, with Diego trying to fill the tense silence and Sofia actively avoiding looking at Julian. Finally, Diego suggested they dance, and Sofia agreed quickly, eager to escape the magnetic pull of Julian Blackwood. As Diego led her onto the dance floor, Sofia could feel Julian's eyes following her every movement. Diego pulled her into a comfortable waltz position and smiled down at her. "Well, that was interesting. It was uncomfortable," Sofia corrected. "He wants you," Diego said bluntly. "I have never seen Julian Blackwood look at anyone like that. The man is famous for being completely emotionless in public." "I do not care what he wants," Sofia insisted, though her voice lacked conviction. "He is arrogant and presumptuous. He is also completely captivated by you," Diego pointed out. "Do you know how rare that is? Julian Blackwood does not do relationships. He does not do emotions. Yet he looked at you like you were the only person in this entire ballroom." Sofia shook her head. "It does not matter. I am not interested in billionaires who think they can have whatever they want just because they are rich." But even as she said it, Sofia's eyes found Julian standing at the edge of the dance floor, watching her with that same intense expression. When their gazes locked, something electric passed between them, and Sofia stumbled slightly in Diego's arms. Julian watched Sofia dance with Diego and felt the jealousy intensify. The way Diego's hand rested on her waist, the way they moved together in perfect rhythm. It made Julian want to cross the dance floor and pull her into his own arms. He wanted to be the one making her smile, the one she was looking at with those warm honey eyes. This was insane. Julian Blackwood did not get jealous. He did not obsess over women he had just met. He did not feel this overwhelming need to possess someone. Yet here he was, consumed by feelings he could not control or understand. Catherine appeared at his side again, following his gaze. "You are staring, Julian. It is becoming obvious." "I do not care," Julian replied, surprising himself with the admission. "Who is she?" Catherine asked with genuine curiosity. "Her name is Sofia Ramirez." "She works at an art gallery," Julian said, the words tasting sweet on his tongue. "And I am going to make her mine." Catherine raised an eyebrow. "That is a very possessive statement from a man who does not do relationships." "I do not," Julian agreed. "But for her, I might make an exception." The song ended, and Sofia stepped back from Diego, laughing at something he said. Julian made his decision in that instant. He crossed the dance floor in long strides, reaching them just as another song began. "May I?" Julian asked, though it was not really a question. His hand was already extended toward Sofia. Diego glanced at Sofia, silently asking if she was okay with this. After a moment's hesitation, she nodded. Diego stepped back with a knowing smile and melted into the crowd. Julian pulled Sofia into his arms. The world seemed to shrink until it contained only the two of them. His hand on her waist burned through the silk of her dress. Her hand in his felt impossibly right. They moved together to the music, and Sofia was uncomfortably aware of how perfectly they fit. "You are angry," Sofia observed, looking up at him. "Yes," Julian admitted. "Why?" "Because I have been watching you all night with him, and it is driving me crazy," Julian said bluntly. "Because I cannot stop thinking about you even though we just met. Because you are here with another man, and I want you to be here with me." Sofia's breath caught. "You do not even know me." "I know enough," Julian said, his voice low and intense. "I know that you are intelligent and observant. I know that you are not impressed by money or status. I know that you are kind enough to accompany your colleague to an event even though you did not want to come. I know that when you smile, it lights up your entire face. And I know that there is something between us, whether you want to admit it or not." "That is just attraction," Sofia said, trying to sound dismissive even though her heart was racing. "Physical chemistry." "It does not mean anything," liar Julian said softly. "You feel it too. This is more than just attraction." Sofia wanted to deny it, but she could not find the words. Because he was right. There was something between them, something she had never experienced before. It terrified her. "Are you jealous?" Sofia asked suddenly, remembering how he had looked watching her dance with Diego. "Is that what this is about?" Julian's jaw tightened, and his hand on her waist tightened slightly. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, with brutal honesty, he answered, "Yes, I am jealous. Furiously, irrationally jealous of a man I do not even know, simply because he made you smile." The admission hung between them, raw and vulnerable. Sofia stared up at Julian, seeing past the billionaire facade to the man underneath. A man who was just as confused and overwhelmed by this connection as she was. The music swelled around them. And Julian pulled her closer until there was barely any space between their bodies. Sofia's hand trembled in his, and she saw his gray eyes darken with something that made her stomach flip. "Have dinner with me?" Julian said again. But this time, it was not a command. It was a request. "Please, Sofia. Let me take you to dinner tomorrow night. Let me get to know you properly." Sofia knew she should say no. Every logical part of her brain was screaming that getting involved with Julian Blackwood would be a mistake. He was too intense, too wealthy, too used to getting what he wanted. They came from completely different worlds. But standing there in his arms, feeling the heat of his body against hers, seeing the vulnerability in his eyes, Sofia found herself saying something she had not planned. "One dinner?" She agreed quietly. "Just one." Julian's entire face transformed. The storm clouds in his eyes cleared, replaced by something warm and victorious. He smiled for the first time that night, and it took Sophia's breath away. One dinner, Julian agreed, knowing it would not be enough. Knowing that one dinner with Sofia Ramirez would never be enough, he was already planning the second date before the first had even begun. As the song ended, and they slowly separated, both felt the loss of contact like a physical ache. Julian released her hand reluctantly, his fingers lingering against hers for one extra heartbeat. "I will pick you up at 7 tomorrow," Julian said. Sophia nodded, not trusting her voice. She watched as Julian walked away, his tall figure cutting through the crowd with confidence. What had she just agreed to? And why did the thought of seeing him again tomorrow fill her with equal parts excitement and terror? Diego reappeared at her side, grinning widely. "So, that looked intense." "Shut up," Sophia said, but she was smiling despite herself. "You are going out with him, are you not?" Diego asked knowingly. Sophia sighed. "Just one dinner." "What is the worst that could happen?" Diego laughed. "Oh, Sophia! With a man like Julian Blackwood, everything could happen." And as Sophia left the gala that night, Julian's gray eyes following her until she disappeared from view, I had the unsettling feeling that Diego was absolutely right. Everything was about to change, and there was no going back now. Sophia spent the entire next day questioning her decision. She stood in front of her closet for 20 minutes that evening, pulling out dresses and rejecting them one by one. Nothing felt right. Everything was either too casual or trying too hard. Finally, she settled on a simple black dress that hit just above her knees. Elegant without being overstated. At exactly 7 o'clock, her doorbell rang. Sophia took a deep breath, grabbed her clutch, and opened the door. Julian stood there in a perfectly tailored charcoal suit, no tie, the top button of his white shirt undone. He looked impossibly handsome and slightly nervous, which somehow made him more human. "You look beautiful," Julian said, his voice sincere. "Thank you," Sophia replied, stepping out and locking her door. "Where are we going?" "Somewhere quiet," Julian said, guiding her toward a sleek black car waiting at the curb. "I thought we could actually talk without 100 people watching us." The restaurant Julian chose was intimate and exclusive, tucked away on a quiet street far from the tourist areas. They were seated at a private table near a window overlooking a small garden lit with string lights. It was romantic without being overwhelming, and Sophia found herself relaxing slightly. So Julian said once they had ordered, "Tell me about yourself. The real story, not the polite small talk version." Sophia considered him for a moment. "What do you want to know?" "Everything," Julian replied simply. "Start with why you became an art curator." Something about his genuine interest made Sophia open up. She told him about growing up in Barcelona, about her mother who was a painter and her father who worked in a bookshop. She described how she had fallen in love with art as a child, spending hours in museums while other kids played outside. She explained her move to this city 3 years ago. Chasing an opportunity at the Castellano Gallery, Julian listened intently, asking thoughtful questions, and Sophia found herself sharing things she rarely told anyone. The conversation flowed naturally, moving from art to books to travel to philosophy. They debated the merit of modern art versus classical. They discussed their favorite cities and the places they dreamed of visiting. "Your turn," Sophia said eventually, leaning back in her chair. "Tell me about Julian Blackwood. The real version, not the billionaire CEO everyone reads about in magazines." Julian's expression shifted, becoming more guarded. "There is not much to tell. I built a company. It became successful. End of story." "That is the magazine version," Sophia pointed out. "I want the real story. Why technology? What drives you? What do you do when you are not making billions of dollars?" Julian was quiet for a long moment, his fingers tracing patterns on the tablecloth. When he finally spoke, his voice was careful, measured. "I do not talk about myself much." "I noticed," Sophia said gently. "But I just spent an hour telling you my life story." "Fair is fair." Julian met her eyes, and something in her honest gaze made him want to try. "I grew up poor," he said quietly. "Not struggling middle class. Actually poor. My mother worked 3 jobs to keep us fed. My father left when I was 6, and we never heard from him again. Sophia's expression softened, but she did not interrupt. I taught myself to code when I was 12 using a computer at the library, Julian continued. I knew it was my ticket out. By 16, I was building websites for local businesses. By 18, I had my first real contract with a tech company. I put myself through university, started my own company at 23, and never looked back. And your mother? Sophia asked softly. A genuine smile crossed Julian's face. She lives in a house I bought her in the countryside. She finally retired last year, though she complains about being bored. She keeps trying to get me to settle down and give her grandchildren. Smart woman, Sophia said, smiling. Julian laughed, the sound surprising them both. She would like you. You are stubborn enough to handle her. I have not agreed to meet your mother, Sophia pointed out. Not yet, Julian said, his eyes holding hers. But you will. The certainty in his voice should have annoyed Sophia, but instead, it sent a warm flutter through her chest. You are very confident. I know what I want, Julian said simply. And I want to know you, Sophia. All of you. The parts you show the world, and the parts you hide. Sophia felt her defenses crumbling. Why me? You could have anyone. Julian leaned forward, his expression intense. Because you are real. Because you looked at me last night and did not see my bank account or my reputation. You saw me. Because when I am with you, I feel something I have not felt in years. Maybe ever. What do you feel? Sophia whispered. Alive, Julian said. Like I finally found something worth more than any business deal or company acquisition. Like maybe there is more to life than just building empires. The vulnerability in his admission made Sophia's heart ache. She reached across the table and took his hand. Julian, I need you to understand something. I am not looking for a fairy tale. I have my own life, my own career, my own dreams. I cannot be some billionaire's accessory. I do not want an accessory, Julian said firmly, his hand tightening around hers. I want a partner, someone who challenges me, someone who will not let me hide behind my walls. Someone like you. They stayed at the restaurant until it closed, talking about everything and nothing. Julian told her about the loneliness of success, how he had built walls around himself to protect from people who only wanted his money or connections. Sophia shared her fears about never being taken seriously in the art world, about always being seen as just another curator instead of someone with vision and talent. When Julian finally drove her home, neither wanted the night to end. He walked her to her door, and they stood there in the dim hallway light, the air between them charged with possibility. I want to see you again, Julian said. Tomorrow. And the day after? And every day after that, if you will let me. Sophia looked up at him, seeing past the powerful CEO to the lonely man underneath. She saw someone who had built walls just like she had, someone who was terrified of being hurt, someone who was taking a risk by opening up to her. I am scared, Sophia admitted. This is happening so fast. We barely know each other. Julian cupped her face gently, his thumb brushing across her cheek. I am scared too. But I would rather be scared with you than safe without you. Sophia felt tears prick her eyes. What if we ruin this? What if the reality cannot live up to whatever this intensity is? Then we will deal with it together, Julian said. But Sophia, I need you to know something. I have never felt this way about anyone. I've never wanted someone the way I want you. Not just physically, though God knows I do. But I want to know every thought in your head. I want to hear about your day. I want to be the person you call when something good happens or when something goes wrong. I want all of it. That is terrifying, Sophia whispered. I know, Julian agreed. But some things are worth being terrified for. Sophia made her decision in that moment. She rose up on her toes and kissed him. It was soft at first, tentative, testing. But then Julian's arms came around her, pulling her close, and the kiss deepened. It was a kiss full of promise and hunger, and something that felt dangerously close to falling. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathing hard. Julian rested his forehead against hers, his eyes closed. Stay with me tonight, he said quietly. Just to talk. I have a guest room. I just do not want this night to end yet. Sophia knew she should say no. Knew she should go inside alone and put some distance between them, but she found herself nodding instead. Okay, just to talk? Julian's penthouse was exactly what Sophia expected. Modern, expensive, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. But it was also strangely impersonal, like a hotel room rather than a home. There were no photographs, no personal touches, nothing that revealed the man who lived there. This does not look like anyone actually lives here, Sophia observed. Wandering through the living room, Julian looked around as if seeing it for the first time. I suppose it does not. I am rarely here. I usually sleep at the office. That is sad, Sophia said bluntly. Julian smiled. You are not afraid to tell me the truth, are you? Should I be? Most people are, Julian admitted. They tell me what they think I want to hear. I am not most people, Sophia said, settling onto the couch. No, Julian agreed, sitting beside her. You are definitely not. They talked until dawn broke over the city, sitting close on the couch, hands intertwined. Julian told her about the pressure of running a multi-billion-dollar company, about the board members who questioned his every decision, about the weight of knowing thousands of people depended on him for their livelihoods. Sophia shared her dreams of opening her own gallery someday, of giving unknown artists the platform they deserved. She told him about her complicated relationship with her parents, who loved her but did not understand her choices. She confessed her fear of never being enough, of always falling short of some invisible standard. As the sun rose, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, Julian pulled Sophia closer. She rested her head on his shoulder, and for the first time in years, Julian felt peace. Not the absence of problems, but the presence of someone who made the problems feel manageable. I should go, Sophia said softly, though she made no move to leave. I have work in a few hours. Call in sick, Julian suggested, his fingers playing with her hair. I cannot just call in sick because a billionaire wants me to stay, Sophia said, but she was smiling. Why not? I do it all the time, Julian teased. Sophia sat up and looked at him seriously. Julian, I need you to understand something. My work matters to me. My independence matters. I cannot be the kind of person who drops everything for a relationship. I do not want you to be, Julian assured her. Your passion for your work is part of what draws me to you. But I also want to be part of your life. Is that so wrong? No, Sophia admitted. But we need to take this slowly. Really get to know each other. Not just have this intense whirlwind thing that burns out in a month. Julian nodded, though every instinct in him wanted to pull her closer and never let go. Slowly. I can do slowly. Starting with dinner again tonight? Sophia laughed. That is not slowly. Dinner every night for a month is slower than moving in together tomorrow, Julian pointed out. You are impossible, Sophia said, but she was smiling. Is that a yes to dinner? Sophia kissed him softly. Yes. But I picked the place this time. Somewhere normal people go? I am dating a woman who thinks I need to eat like normal people, Julian said with mock despair. Dating? Sophia raised an eyebrow. Who said anything about dating? Julian's expression grew serious. I am saying it. I want to date you, Sophia. Officially. Exclusively. I want you to be mine. The possessiveness in his tone should have bothered her, but instead it made Sophia's heart race. And what do I get in return? Me, Julian said simply. All of me. The good, the bad, the workaholic tendencies, the jealousy, the walls I have built. I will tear them all down for you if you give me a chance. Sophia looked at this powerful man who was laying himself bare for her, offering her everything despite knowing each other for barely 2 days. It was crazy. It was reckless. It was everything she usually avoided. Okay, she said quietly. Let us try this. But Julian, I need you to promise me something. Anything. Promise me you will be honest with me. Even when it is hard. Even when you want to hide behind your walls. Promise me you will let me see the real you. Julian took her hands in his gray eyes intense and sincere. I promise. If you promise me the same thing, I promise, Sophia agreed. They sealed the promise with a kiss, neither knowing that they were beginning something that would change both their lives forever, neither knowing the challenges they would face or the obstacles they would overcome, but both knowing that whatever happened next, they wanted to face it together. As Sophia finally left Julian's penthouse that morning, the sun fully risen and the city coming to life below, she felt like she was stepping into a new chapter of her life, one filled with possibility and risk, and a man whose intensity both terrified and thrilled her. Julian watched her go, already counting the hours until he would see her again. For the first time in his adult life, something mattered more than his company, more than his success, more than his carefully constructed world. Sophia mattered, and he would do whatever it took to keep her in his life. The next 3 months passed in a blur of discovery and deepening connection. Sophia and Julian navigated their relationship with a mixture of caution and abandon, learning each other's rhythms and respecting each other's boundaries. True to her word, Sophia maintained her independence, continuing to throw herself into her work at the gallery while Julian struggled to balance his demanding schedule with his growing need to be near her. Their differences became both their greatest challenge and their strongest bond. Sophia introduced Julian to her world of small galleries and emerging artists, dragging him to exhibition openings in converted warehouses where he was the most overdressed person in the room. Julian showed Sophia glimpses of his empire, not to impress her, but to help her understand the weight he carried every day. One evening, Sophia arrived at Julian's office unannounced with takeout food, finding him hunched over his desk at 9 o'clock, stress evident in every line of his body. His assistant had left hours ago, and the building was nearly empty. "When did you last eat?" Sophia asked, setting the bags on his desk. Julian looked up, surprise and relief flooding his features. "Breakfast, I think." "What are you doing here?" "Rescuing you from yourself," Sophia said, clearing space among his papers. "You have been working 16-hour days all week. Even billionaires need to eat." Julian pushed back from his desk and pulled her into his lap, burying his face in her neck. "I missed you. This week has been hell." Sophia ran her fingers through his hair, feeling the tension in his shoulders. "Tell me about it." As they ate, Julian explained the hostile takeover attempt by a rival company, the board meetings that had stretched for hours, the difficult decisions he had to make that would affect hundreds of employees. Sophia listened without judgment, asking thoughtful questions and offering perspective when he needed it. "You carry too much alone," Sophia observed. "You have an entire executive team. Why do you feel like you have to solve everything yourself?" Julian was quiet for a moment, "Because that is what I've always done. Since I was a kid, it was just me and my mother against the world. I learned early that if I wanted something done right, I had to do it myself." "That is a lonely way to live," Sophia said softly. "It was," Julian agreed, tightening his arms around her. "Until you." Sophia turned in his lap to face him. "You do not have to be alone anymore, Julian. Let me share the burden. Even if I cannot solve your business problems, I can listen. I can be here." Julian kissed her, pouring all his gratitude and growing love into the gesture. "How did I get so lucky?" he murmured against her lips. "You stalked me at a gala and got jealous over Diego," Sophia teased. "Best decision I ever made," Julian said with a smile. "But not everything was easy. Their different worlds collided in uncomfortable ways." At a gallery event Sophia had organized, Julian struggled to contain his irritation when a pretentious art critic spent 20 minutes monopolizing her attention, his hand lingering too long on her arm. Sophia had to pull Julian aside and remind him that networking was part of her job. "He was touching you," Julian said tightly. "He was being friendly," Sophia countered. "Julian, you cannot glare at every man who talks to me. I work in a social industry." "I know that," Julian said, running his hand through his hair in frustration. "I know I am being unreasonable. But when I see other men looking at you, wanting you, it makes me crazy." Sophia cupped his face, forcing him to look at her. "I am here with you. I choose you. Every day I choose you. But you have to trust me, Julian. This possessiveness, it is sweet in small doses, but it cannot control my life." Julian closed his eyes, fighting against instincts he had never had to confront before. I am trying. I swear I am trying. This is new for me, Sophia. Caring this much about someone? Being this vulnerable. It terrifies me. It terrifies me too, Sophia admitted. But we cannot let fear make us toxic. We have to trust each other. Julian nodded slowly. You are right. I will work on it. Just be patient with me, always, Sophia promised, kissing him softly. The real test came when Julian had to travel to Tokyo for 2 weeks for crucial negotiations. It was the longest they would be apart since they started dating, and neither was handling it well. They video called every day, sometimes multiple times, working around the 13-hour time difference on the 5th day. Sophia was setting up for a major exhibition when Diego approached her with concern on his face. You look exhausted. Are you sleeping? Not much, Sophia admitted. The time difference makes it hard. By the time Julian is free to call, it is 3 in the morning here. Sophia, you cannot keep this up, Diego said gently. You are going to burn out. I'm fine, Sophia insisted, but even she could hear how unconvincing she sounded. That night, when Julian called, Sophia could not hide her exhaustion. Julian noticed immediately. You look tired, love. Are you okay? Just missing you, Sophia said, trying to smile. The apartment feels too empty without you. Julian's expression grew concerned. Sophia, you need to sleep. We can talk tomorrow. No, I want to talk now, Sophia protested. I barely see you as it is. I am coming home, Julian decided suddenly. What? No, Julian. Your negotiations are important. You are more important, Julian said firmly. I can video conference for the rest. I am booking a flight right now. You cannot just abandon a multi-million-dollar deal because I am tired, Sophia argued, though part of her desperately wanted him home. Watch me, Julian said, already typing on his laptop. I will be home tomorrow evening. Sophia felt tears prick her eyes. You would really do that? Leave everything and come home? Julian stopped typing and looked at her seriously through the screen. Sophia, there is nothing more important to me than you. Not the company, not the deals, not anything. If you need me, I will be there, always. I love you, Sophia said, the words slipping out before she could stop them. It was the first time either of them had said it. Julian froze, his eyes widening. What did you say? Sophia felt panic rise in her chest. I said I love you. I am sorry. I know it is too soon. I should not have. Say it again, Julian interrupted, his voice rough with emotion. I love you, Sophia repeated, tears streaming down her face now. I love you, Julian Blackwood. I love your intensity and your vulnerability. I love how you try so hard to be better. I love that you would drop everything to come home to me. Julian's eyes were suspiciously bright. I love you too, Sophia. God, I love you so much it scares me. I have loved you since that first night at the gala when you challenged me instead of fawning over me. I have just been too afraid to say it. They stayed on the video call for another hour, just looking at each other, saying I love you over and over like they were making up for lost time. Julian did come home the next day, walking into Sophia's apartment at 8 in the evening, looking exhausted but determined. Sophia, I launched herself into his arms. And Julian caught her, holding her like he would never let go. I am home, he whispered into her hair. I am home. They spent that night wrapped in each other's arms, not making love, but simply holding each other, reassuring themselves that this was real, that they had found something worth fighting for. The following weeks brought new challenges. Julian's mother, Rosa, insisted on meeting Sophia. The lunch was arranged at a quiet restaurant. Sophia was more nervous than she had been for any gallery opening. Rosa Blackwood was a small woman with kind eyes and Julian's strong jawline. She hugged Sophia immediately, ignoring her outstretched hand. So you are the woman who finally tamed my son, Rosa said with a warm smile. I did not tame him, Sophia protested. I just love him. Rosa's eyes softened. That is exactly what he needs. Someone who loves him, not his money. Julian has been alone for too long, building walls to keep people out. Over lunch, Rosa shared stories of Julian's childhood, painting a picture of a brilliant, determined boy who grew up too fast. Sophia saw where Julian got his strength and his vulnerability. By the end of the meal, Rosa was holding Sophia's hand and declaring she was exactly the daughter she had always wanted. "She loves you," Julian said later, relief evident in his voice. "She called me after you left. She said you are perfect for me." "Your mother is wonderful," Sophia said honestly. "I see so much of you in her." "She's everything I aspire to be," Julian admitted. "Strong, loving, resilient. She never let poverty or hardship make her bitter." Sophia's own parents were next. They flew in from Barcelona, and Sophia was anxious about how they would react to Julian. Her father, a quiet intellectual, and her mother, a free-spirited artist, were so different from Julian's corporate world, but Julian charmed them effortlessly. He spoke passable Spanish, having learned it in university. He engaged Sophia's father in discussions about literature and asked intelligent questions about her mother's paintings. By the end of the weekend, her parents were convinced Julian was good enough for their daughter. "He loves you," Sophia's mother said privately. "I can see it in how he looks at you. Like you are his whole world." "He is mine too, Mama," Sophia confessed. As summer turned to fall, Sophia and Julian found their rhythm. They learned to balance their demanding careers with their relationship. They had their first real fight about Julian working through a weekend they had planned together, and their first real reconciliation where both apologized and compromised. Julian learned to let Sophia have her independence, to trust that she would come home to him even when other men showed interest. Sophia learned to let Julian take care of her sometimes, to accept that his gestures came from love, not a need to control. One evening in late October, Julian took Sophia back to the spot where they had their first real conversation, the restaurant with the garden view. But this time, the garden was decorated with thousands of tiny lights, creating a magical atmosphere. "What is all this?" Sophia asked, enchanted. Julian led her outside to the garden where rose petals created a path to the center. In the middle stood a single table with 2 chairs and champagne waiting. Julian, Sophia breathed, her heart beginning to race. Julian turned to face her, taking both her hands in his. "Sophia, 8 months ago I saw you at a gala and my entire world shifted. I did not know it then, but I was looking at my future. You have changed everything about how I see life. You taught me that success means nothing without someone to share it with. You showed me that being vulnerable is not weakness. It is strength." Julian dropped to one knee, and Sophia gasped, tears already streaming down her face. "You make me want to be better. To do better, to live better," Julian continued, pulling a velvet box from his pocket. "I want to wake up next to you every morning for the rest of my life. I want to fight with you and make up with you. I want to build a family with you and grow old with you. Sophia Ramirez, will you marry me?" He opened the box, revealing a stunning ring. Not the largest diamond he could afford, but a perfect emerald surrounded by smaller diamonds. The same color as the dress she wore the night they met? "Yes," Sophia sobbed, dropping to her knees in front of him. "Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes. I love you so much, Julian." Julian slipped the ring on her finger with shaking hands, then pulled her into a kiss that tasted of tears and joy and promise. When they finally pulled apart, both were crying and laughing at the same time. "I was so nervous," Julian admitted. "What if you had said no?" "Never," Sophia said fiercely. "You are stuck with me now, Blackwood." "Best fate I could imagine," Julian replied. Kissing her again, they celebrated with champagne in the enchanted garden, planning their future together. They decided on a small wedding, just family and close friends. They talked about keeping their separate apartments for now, but spending most nights together. They discussed Sophia's dream of opening her own gallery, and Julian's desire to step back from the company eventually. "I want to travel with you," Julian said, holding her close. "I want to show you the world. I want to take time to actually live instead of just working." "We'll do all of it," Sophia promised. Together, engagement party was held at Julian's penthouse, which Sophia had slowly transformed into an actual home over the months. There were photographs now of them together, of their families. There were books Sophia loved scattered on tables. There were plants by the windows and art on the walls. It finally looked like people lived there, like love lived there. Diego gave a toast that made everyone laugh and cry. I knew from the moment Julian looked at Sophia at that gala that something extraordinary was happening. I've never seen two people more perfectly matched in stubbornness, intelligence, and capacity for love. To Julian and Sophia, may your love story never end. Catherine Winters, who had become an unexpected friend to Sophia, pulled her aside during the party. You know, Julian is a different person since he met you. Lighter, somehow. More human. Thank you for that. He did the same for me, Sophia said honestly. He taught me that love does not mean losing yourself. It means finding yourself reflected in someone else's eyes. As the party wound down and guests departed, Julian and Sophia stood on the balcony overlooking the city, exactly where they had stood that first morning after talking all night. Are you happy? Julian asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind. Sophia leaned back against him, watching the city lights twinkle below. Happier than I ever thought possible. Are you? Deliriously, Julian said, kissing her temple. Though I still cannot believe you said yes. Cannot believe you asked, Sophia countered. 8 months ago, if someone had told me I would be engaged to Julian Blackwood, I would have laughed in their face. 8 months ago. If someone had told me I would find the love of my life, I would have said love was for fools, Julian admitted. Now I know it is. I am a complete fool for you, Sophia, good Sophia said, turning in his arms to face him, because I am a complete fool for you too. They kissed under the stars, two people who had found each other against all odds. Too strong. Independent souls who had learned that true strength came from allowing yourself to be vulnerable with the right person. Two hearts that had been guarded for so long, finally finding a safe place to rest. The wedding took place 6 months later in a small vineyard outside the city. Sophia wore a simple white dress that made Julian's breath catch when he saw her walking down the aisle. They exchanged vows they had written themselves, promising not perfection but honesty, not ease but effort, not fairy tale romance but real messy, beautiful love. When Julian kissed his bride, sealing their promise to each other, Sophia felt like every moment of her life had led to this. Every heartbreak, every doubt, every lonely night had been worth it to find this man. This love, this life. I love you, Mrs. Blackwood, Julian whispered against her lips. Love you too, Sophia replied, though I am keeping Ramirez professionally. Julian laughed. I would expect nothing less. They danced their first dance as husband and wife to the same song that had played at the gala where they met. Julian held Sophia close, and she rested her head on his shoulder, exactly where it belonged. No regrets? Julian asked softly. Not a single one, Sophia assured him. You only that I did not find you sooner, Julian said. But maybe we needed to become who we are before we could find each other. Maybe, Sophia agreed. Or maybe the universe just has a twisted sense of timing. As the night wore on, and they celebrated with the people they loved most, Sophia thought about that night at the gala. She had gone reluctantly, never imagining it would change her life. She had danced with Julian out of curiosity, never knowing she was dancing with her future, and when he had asked if she felt the connection between them, why she had lied and said no. But she felt it now, stronger than ever. A connection that had survived jealousy and distance, independence and vulnerability, fear and love, years later. When people asked how they met, Julian would smile and say, I saw her at a party with another man and got insanely jealous. Even though I had no right to be, Sophia would add. He asked if I felt the connection between us, and I lied and said no. Best lie I ever told, because it made me admit the truth to myself. Their love story was not perfect. They still fought sometimes, still challenged each other, still drove each other crazy. But they also laughed together, dreamed together, and built a life together that was richer than either could have imagined alone. Julian never stopped being intense or possessive, but he learned to channel it into loving Sophia fiercely and supporting her dreams unconditionally. Sophia never stopped being independent or challenging, but she learned that accepting love did not mean losing herself. They had 2 children eventually, a daughter who had Sophia's warm eyes and Julian's determination, and a son who had Julian's quiet intensity and Sophia's creative spirit. They opened a gallery together, combining Sophia's vision with Julian's business acumen. Giving opportunities to artists who deserved a chance, Julian stepped back from the day-to-day running of his company, appointing a CEO while he remained chairman. He wanted time for what mattered most: his family, his wife, the life they were building together. On their 10th anniversary, they returned to that garden restaurant where Julian had proposed. The lights still twinkled like stars, and the roses still bloomed in profusion. "You remember what you asked me that first night we danced?" Sophia said, sitting across from Julian at their special table. "I asked if you felt the connection between us," Julian recalled. "And I said I did not," Sophia continued. "But if you ask me now?" Julian reached across the table and took her hand, his thumb brushing over her wedding ring. "What would you say now?" Sophia smiled, her eyes filled with a decade of love and memories and shared dreams. "I would say that what I feel for you goes beyond connection. It is recognition. You are the piece of my soul I did not know was missing. You are my home, my adventure, my peace, and my passion, all at once." Julian felt his throat tighten with emotion. "I love you, Sophia. More with every passing day. You are the best decision I ever made." "We were the best decision we ever made," Sophia corrected. "Because we chose each other. Not just once at that gala, but every day since. We keep choosing each other, and that is what makes this real." They kissed across the table. No longer the guarded strangers they had been a decade ago, but partners who had weathered storms and celebrated victories together. Two people who had learned that love was not about finding someone perfect, but about finding someone perfect for you. As they left the restaurant that night, hand in hand under the stars, Sophia thought about the woman she had been at that gala so many years ago. Guarded, independent, certain she did not need anyone. And while she was still independent and strong, she had learned that needing someone was not weakness. It was wisdom. Julian had taught her that you could be powerful and vulnerable at the same time. That true strength came from opening your heart despite the risk. That love, real love, did not diminish you, but expanded you into someone more than you could be alone. And Sophia had taught Julian that money and success meant nothing without someone to share them with. That vulnerability was not failure, but courage. That the strongest walls were the ones you built together, not the ones you hid behind alone. Their story was not a fairy tale. It was better. It was real, messy, complicated, and absolutely beautiful. It was jealousy transforming into trust, walls crumbling into bridges, fear evolving into love. And as they drove home that night to their children and their life together, both knew that they would do it all over again. Every moment of doubt, every challenge overcome, every risk taken. Because in the end, they had found what so many people spend their whole lives searching for. They had found each other. And that made everything else worthwhile. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this story. If you enjoyed this content, don't forget to click like. Share this story with your friends and family, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on more meaningful stories.